I wouldn't have been here. You said Nicole, I should thought.
Every time Nicole just giggles. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for coming to my speech today. I really appreciate your support. I want to talk today about something that is important to me because I work in the banking industry. So we're going to talk about becoming financially independent. Becoming financially independent becomes harder and harder as you get older and older. I think there's a young generation that's really struggling, and it's becoming harder daily to reach that independence financially. By educating ourselves on 3 specific areas, it can help us to grow our stability in our lives, reduce stress, and enjoy a more stable, happier life. These 3 areas are knowing about your finances, building a budget, and strengthening or growing your credit. The first area we're going to talk about is finance. Perfect. According to the Merriam-Webster.com, finance is the way in which money is used and handled. So, a lot of people have like a strange feeling about their finances, and I love this kind of picture that I found for this. So, I'm going to ask a couple questions. I want you guys to just think to yourselves about what these things mean to you. So, how do you feel personally about your finances, your financial situation? Just think about it. I want you to think about the concerns you maybe have with your finances. And I want you to think about how you react when you come across specific financial situations in your life, positive or negative. So a lot of the time people feel like this little girl. She's sitting in front of a dolphin tank, absolutely terrified because there's this thing looming behind her that can't physically touch her, that can't harm her physically, but she knows it's there. And it scares her. And a lot of people have that opinion about their finances. So the next thing we want to talk about is with your personal finances, there's a lot to do with it. So how do you get your money on a daily basis? How do you spend your money or use your money? And what are you spending your money on? And then why do you spend your money on those specific things? These are all questions we can ask ourselves on a daily basis to help us understand our financial situation. So now that we kind of know what finances are in our personal lives, we're going to talk about the next step, which is budgeting. So, the definition of a budget, according to my money coach, is simply balancing your expenses with your income. It's pretty simple. Building a budget can include, there's a couple ways to do it. You can list your incomes, number 1, and then list your debts. The debts can include monthly bills, gas, insurance, cell phones, rent, things like that. After you've listed your incomes and your debts, making a financial goal or a purchase goal, a payoff goal, or a savings goal is key in helping you budget for something. It's hard to build a budget if you don't have a goal in mind. Then you can go through and think about how much do you pay out for other expenses that are not planned expenses every month. Once you've figured out all the math, you can figure out how much money you have left, and then you can decide how much of that you want to put into a savings account and how much you're going to use for fun or just for spending, you know? So finding a balance in what's coming in and what's going out is really, really important. There's dangers if you get carried away and you're spending more than you're bringing in. This can really affect your credit. It can affect the way that you build your debt rather than your savings account. So it's really important we find a balance of what's coming in and what's going out so we can save along the way. The next slide I have is a little bit of a budget that I've come up with just as an example. So you can see it talks about like the insurance is $200, cell phones $55, car payments $250, the debt payments are $100 a month, and then there's a $250 student loan. So the total bills coming out per month in this specific plan is $1,005. Now we've budgeted that the income is $1,780, which leaves $775 left for spending and for savings. And then anybody can take what they have left and allocate what they need to spend and what they can save, and anybody can build a budget using this general plan. Okay? So now that we've talked about the importance of budgeting, there's another step that is just as important as like your GPA in high school, and that's going to be credit. Credit is extremely important nowadays. Credit will affect your life in every aspect. So whether you want to purchase a home, it'll affect your mortgage if you can get approved for a mortgage. It'll affect your rates on car loans. It'll affect your credit cards that you can get. It'll even affect the price you pay for insurance. It can get you approved or declined for an apartment, and it can actually affect your job opportunities because a lot of employers nowadays pull credit to make sure that you are a responsible individual financially before they'll hire you. The next slide I have is just a little bit of a breakdown of the differences in credit and how it affects specifically a mortgage. So if you have a 760 or above credit score right now, the average is going to be a 3.485 interest rate, which would, for a certain amount of money, would say your monthly payment's $896 a month. If you have a 660 or a 679 credit score in between that range, at the same amount of mortgage, you're going to be at a 4.096, or in other words, you're paying just about $100 more a month because your credit is a tiny bit lower. I mean, it makes a difference between 40 and 60 points. So as we continue, your credit is all about your future. How many of you guys think, just kind of go through, how many of you have credit established already? Everybody should eventually, right? We're all over 18 years of age, so yes. Do you guys right now know what your credit score is? How many of you guys have credit cards? How many of you guys know how to build your credit? Things like that. These are all questions that are really important nowadays. So the most important part about credit is growing our credit. There are 12 steps that Forbes.com lists that are 12 steps to growing your credit. With these 12 steps are going to include, number 1, disputing any errors you have, negotiating any collections or missed payments you have, getting your credit card limits changed if they're high, getting a new credit card, becoming an authorized user. If you're underusing your cards, that can affect your credit. Raising your credit limits, not closing your cards, and paying your bills on time can all help you build credit. So as a final review really quick, we reviewed the importance of what are finances, what is a budget, and what is credit and how do we grow it. Knowing basics about these 2 things can really affect our financial future. Yeah. So that's what I have for you guys today. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm good.
No, Scott? No. Perfect.
How long does it take to build your credit?
Building credit is a process. There are certain things you can do that will build your credit faster, like getting a credit building loan or putting money down on a secured card. But credit, once it's damaged or lower, is harder to increase than it is to decrease. So it takes time to build your credit.
Is it possible to not have credit?
Generally, if you're under the age of 18, you don't have a defined credit, but anybody who has a social security number has a credit score.